Good Saturday morning to everybody, and welcome to HyperFit Radio Show, along with Dr. Charles Guglin. I'm Gary Byron. Good to see you, brother. How you been?
Good to see you too, man. We've been good.
You're looking good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Time is doing well with you, my friend. Also, the weather has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That the winter doldrums are over.
Let's hope. Yeah, knock on wood. How was your week?
It was good. Yeah. It was a good week. It was a little slow. But that's okay. People are going outside. They're not going to the doctor.
Well, unless they have to. Nowadays, people don't go unless they have to.
Right.
All the more reason why, preventative is really where it's at. Why wait until you're suffering through something when it could have been preventative? Mm-hmm. In an age management center. Tell me really quickly, what is an age management center? I know that's what HyperFit MD is. I know that's what you do, but for somebody who's just joined the show maybe in the last couple of weeks and they're going, all right, I keep hearing age management. So what's an age management center?
It's a good question. It really I'm trying to convey with that name, with that whatever you want to call it, the title or whatever, I'm trying to convey to anybody who looks at our website or whatever that the thrust of this practice is really about maintaining a good quality of life and maintaining health well into old age.
Yeah.
That involves understanding in a fundamental way when a person goes through menopause or a person goes through andropause, they are suffering from hormone withdrawal, and the science has clearly been done that hormone replacement therapy is very helpful from a cardiovascular standpoint to a cognitive standpoint, certainly in a quality of life standpoint from intimacy issues and so on and so forth. But also, we talked last week about neuromodulators and fillers in terms of the aesthetic aspects of aging. Understanding that when a patient gets older, they run into health problems, cancer, cardiovascular disease, so on and so forth. Trying to help them do an end run around that by helping them get healthier, for everything from weight loss to, again, what we talked about, the hormone replacement aspect of it. I think we're going to talk about IV therapies today, and it's very helpful. That isn't so much in the age management realm. We do a lot of body comp analysis in our practice to give somebody an idea of what their baseline is. We do unbelievably comprehensive blood work in our practice that goes way beyond that executive panel that your doc does every year. And the whole idea is to take somebody who's, let's say, 50, 55, and they've gotten to that point where we don't look forward when we're young because we think we're going to live forever. But we get to a certain age. We all get to a certain age where we start looking forward. You say, okay, you're checking your watch. You say, well, maybe I got 20 years left. Maybe I got 30 years left.
It's happening with me now. And I just turned 51 on March 26th. So
Happy birthday.
A couple of Fridays ago. The 26th, I turned 51. But let me tell you, when I turned 50, so a year ago, right around now, what you just said just resonated with me. That I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had to chime in because you look at as a man. It's the only way I can look at this is from my perspective, out of the lens of my eyes, and that's I know there's more time in back of me than there is in front of me. Mm-hmm. And what are my goals? What are some things I really want to do, and what's really important to me? And you don't.
Right.
What you just said, you don't want to waste a moment of time.
Right. Exactly. You get to that point where every minute counts.
Yeah.
And certainly, again, when we're talking about quality of life, you don't want to just get sicker and sicker and sicker and consume more pharmaceuticals and more pharmaceuticals until you fall out of your wheelchair into the grave, okay? We're all going to go through that 1 or 2 year quick decline before we pass away. And hopefully that 1 or 2 year decline, you can put that off for as long as possible. Put it this way. This is what I say to patients all the time. I'm pointing to my head now because I know this is a radio station, okay? All of this, everything from your neck down, your entire body, your entire being exists to carry your brain around, okay? If your brain wants to go to the beach and you can't take it to the beach, if your brain wants to go skiing and your body can't take your brain skiing, if your brain wants to make love to your wife and your body cannot make love to your wife, then it's very definitely a quality of life issue, okay? And there are many, many different ways of impacting that slow decline so that it just doesn't happen or it happens slower. And that's really what age management's all about. It's a long answer, but that's really what it's all about.
When, last week we were talking about Botox, we were talking about fillers. Do you think, is there one sex that's more dominant in those two fields?
Oh, yeah. Women, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
What do you
Men
think,
are catching on, though.
What do you think the ratio is right now?
Well, right now it's 90-10. But men are catching on. They're very definitely catching on.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're it's no longer anathema for a man to discuss aesthetics, okay? It's no longer taboo for a man to say, I look really old. I got these wrinkles. I want a facelift or whatever. It's just, and I'm not a cosmetic surgeon. We don't do facelifts or anything like that in our practice. I refer that to my friends who are cosmetic surgeons. But men are beginning to understand, look, how many weeks ago did we talk about erectile dysfunction?
Right.
Men talk about that stuff now. They never did before.
It's a good point.
Okay?
Yeah.
The aesthetic aspect of getting older is the same thing. You have these guys who are walking the walk in terms of their health. Okay, they're staying healthy, they're exercising, they're eating super clean. But they like to go out in the sun and stuff. Their face is beginning to show it. We talked last week about business. Okay, the young guy with a full face and smooth skin and bright eyes and no wrinkles. Who is fighting for your job is going to kick your butt if you're 20 years older and you look 20 years older. It's as simple as that. And guys want that look. They definitely are coming around to the point where they want to talk. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to do something about it.
What led to that? Why? What was somebody flick a switch somewhere 20, 30 years ago that men didn't care about that? What changed?
20, 30 years ago, the old man in the suit was the icon of business, okay? Now it's the 30-year-old Harvard graduate who is the icon of business. This is very much a youth culture. And it's critical. It's critical to making a living these days, The unemployment rate in this country, I don't know what it is, but it's pretty high. And you got a lot of guys out there who have been downsized or whatever who are looking for work. And I think it makes a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk this morning, and you already mentioned it. Let's talk about IV therapy. And I'm going to start off with a very basic question, as I have in the past. Let's start with, what is IV therapy? Okay. I know.
Yeah, I know. It's
a good way to start.
Yeah, it's a good way to start. IV stands for intravenous therapy. It's about putting a plastic catheter into your vein and giving you nutrients for whatever reason. I mean, there's plenty of different reasons for it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you run an IV on something.
Right, yeah. It's delivering nutrients directly to your bloodstream as opposed to depending on your GI tract to absorb it. Metabolize it and absorb it.
And that's where the IV goes. It goes into a vein?
Yeah, it goes right into your vein, yeah.
Oh. So what ailments, I suppose, I should ask, what can be addressed by an IV nutrient therapy then?
We have certain concoctions for lots of different things. We have a hangover one, okay?
Is that right?
Yeah, sure. We see a lot of guys on Saturday mornings and a lot of lawyers during the week for hangover IVs. And what's in our hangover IV is exactly what you would get if you went to the emergency room and you were alcohol toxic, okay? Boatloads of fluid, boatloads of B vitamins. There's an antiemetic there for the nausea. There is an intravenous non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent for the headaches and the muscle aches and so on and so forth. So it's virtually everything that you would get if you went into emergency room alcohol toxic or with a bad, super bad. You wouldn't go to. I mean, you have to have a super bad hangover to go to the emergency room. We see people before and after like a marathon.
Why can't I just take vitamins then? I mean, won't vitamins really do the same thing without the whole elaborate IV setup? In fact, I even think you mentioned vitamins. You're right.
Yeah, it's when you take a vitamin, you're depending on your GI tract to absorb it. Under the best of circumstances, your GI tract absorbs about 40% of it. Then there's what's called the first pass phenomenon, where your liver metabolizes it. Many people have GI issues. They're taking Pepsid every day or something like that to turn off the acid in their stomach, so they can absorb things a little bit differently. They have, because of all of the toxins that we absorb in the environment every day, because the toxins of the food that we eat and so on and so forth, our guts are a little bit leaky, so we don't really absorb it very well in our gut. Those kinds of things. Our colons don't metabolize things well because we've messed up our microbiome with antibiotics and things like that. When you're giving these nutrients intravenously, the absorption is 100%, and it's guaranteed to be 100%. So that's really the thing. You're depending on an unknown to absorb something that you've taken by mouth.
Does it hurt? It sounds like it sounds like it'd be uncomfortable.
No, well, there's a brief little pinprick when the IV goes in.
Well, like any needle you'd get.
Yeah, like any needle. And
like if you're giving blood, right?
Oh, that's a much bigger needle when you're giving blood.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's like an 18-gauge needle. The ones we use are 22 or 24-gauge needles. They're very small. So there's that. Then after that, basically you're giving somebody room temperature fluid into a 98.6 degree body. So sometimes people feel a little cold. So we have some really nice blankets.
That's all it'll take is
right.
to warm you
Nice
back up?
blanket.
So I guess I'm just wondering what's in the IV, or does that depend on why you're there? Like you mentioned, if you have a hangover, right?
Yeah.
All right. So nutrient does the ingredient for what the IV contain depend on what your symptoms are, or what the purpose of your visit
to a certain degree. You know, we have one IV that is pretty much a full boat IV that people come in and I'm just feeling under the weather, something like that. Full boat IV in our practice has all the essential amino acids in it. It's got all the essential minerals. It's got boatloads of stress levels of B vitamins. It's got 25 grams of vitamin C. That's literally a pickup truck worth of oranges, okay? It's got 2 grams of glutathione. Glutathione is very interesting. Glutathione is a very potent antioxidant that your body makes. It's made by your liver, but we're under such oxidative stress in life in general that we pretty much utilize our glutathione as we make it. So if you ever to take a blood level glutathione, it'll pretty much always be 0 because you're using it as you make it. So there's 2 grams of glutathione in there, which is a very potent antioxidant, which is very helpful under a lot of oxidative stress type circumstances. We have an IV that is helpful for people who are getting over the flu or in flu season. That has, again, B vitamins in it, a lot of vitamin C in it. So the different things for different issues. People who come in after an event, let's say you ran a marathon, okay, or you did a triathlon. You come to us for IV therapy every other day for like a week afterwards. You'll get back to training a lot faster than the guys that you're competing
Wow,
against.
it has that kind of an immediate effect on you.
Absolutely. We see cancer patients before and after chemo. We have a fairly healthy group of people that come to us who have whatever stage of cancer they're getting chemotherapy. The people in the hospital are just too busy. They can't. You go in, you get your chemotherapy, you go home feeling pretty terrible sometimes. They come in and they get a nutritive IV in the practice, which includes a lot of intravenous fluid, so they get very well hydrated, so on and so forth. And those people feel a lot better and they get back to their life a lot faster. So like you said, it really depends on what your goals are.
How long does a treatment, like an IV treatment, take? Or does that also depend on what kind of IV you're
Well, that's funny. That's a good question because some people want to slam dunk. They're coming in their lunch hour.
Of course,
right?
who doesn't?
Yeah,
right, of
exactly.
course, exactly.
But other people come in and we turn off the lights and we turn on the TV and there's recliners there. A lot of people come in and just crash and fall asleep. And so we slow it down, give them an hour and a half, to take a nap or whatever. So
is that normal?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Fatigue and falling asleep at the IV?
Well, a lot of people do this regularly, and they see it as a break in their week to come in for an intravenous drip. And so, our practice is there's a lot of people coming in and out, but it's a very quiet space. It's a very healing space. It's Francesca and I. It's a mom and pop practice. People come in, they feel to a certain degree that they're in their mother's living room. So it's very relaxing atmosphere there.
Listen, I like the fact that you say it's a mom and pop business because for me, that's what attracts me to this. You're not a number in someone's computer system. I was almost said notch in someone's belt, but you're really becoming a number in someone's computer system, particularly these large outfits that I don't want to diminish the work that they do, because I know some people go to them and they praise them and so on and so forth. But you're filling, not that you don't fill out forms with you, but when you walk in there, they're like, oh yeah, who am I speaking with? Whereas opposed to somebody walks into you, you're like, hey, Bob, how are you? And there's a lot to be said for that. Mm-hmm. Can you create specific treatments based on a person's specific needs?
Sure, yeah. We have. I spoke about cancer patients. There's a certain subset of people out there. Let's say they have stage 4 cancer with something, and they, the allopathic, the regular healthcare system is pretty much at their wits' end about how to help them. A lot of these people have physicians in Austria, in Germany, in France, people who they're seeing. I don't want to call them a guru, but somebody who they follow, who's changed their diet. They put them on an all raw diet, and they want them to get specific ingredients. In that regard, I just become sort of like a technician. I talk to their physician. I say, what is it that you want them to get? I make sure that it's FDA approved and so on and so forth. I'll make sure I'm not killing them. And then we just supply the stuff for them because they're following a physician that's across the water. And they want this. They want to get what this guy wants them to get, and as long as it's safe and it's not, typically it's not a pharmaceutical. Typically it's some kind of a vitamin or something that they want them to get, and then I just source it, and we give it to them.
What are the most common IVs that people come in for?
Well, that one that I spoke about initially, the full boat IV that's got pretty much everything in it. Yeah,
so it's a little bit of everything.
Right,
exactly. And you're seeing more for that than anything else?
Pretty much, because people have experienced. They went to Vegas and they went to a truck and they got an IV, okay, or they saw a Kardashian get one in their hotel room, that kind of thing. So they want to experience it.
It's so sad how influential we are. These Kardashians, we can't escape every show now. We're talking about the Kardashians. That's how much of how influential they are. Folks, you are listening to HyperFit MD Age Management Center. They're located in Milford, Connecticut. We're on every Saturday at this morning. We're talking with Dr. Charles Guglin. I'm Gary Byron. I have to ask you the obvious question, I suppose, when you think about these IV treatments and how common they seem to be and how effective they are. Does insurance pay for it? Or is this out of pocket? And how pricey can this be?
Insurance does not pay for it. In general, many of our cancer patients, we fill out what's called a super bill. Put all the codes on there and stuff like that. Tell them what they came in and had, and then they negotiate with their insurance company to get it paid for. I honestly don't know whether they're getting it paid for under those circumstances, but the average person who comes in, insurance does not pay for it. And in terms of price, the most expensive ones that we have are a couple $100.
All right, so is somebody coming in there just once every blue moon? Are these people who come in routinely? Can you buy a package where, every Wednesday I need a jolt, and I want to come up with a package where for 6 months I want to come in once a week?
Yeah, it's a good question because we do sell packages, and there's significant savings if you buy a package. And yeah, there's some people who are voyeurs and just want to try it once and we never see them again.
Well, you probably want to start that way because you don't want to buy this package for 6 months if you didn't have a good experience with it or had a bad reaction or something like this. So maybe you should start off with 1 or 2 weeks consecutively, and then if it all goes well, go with a package, right?
And we have other people who we see every week. We have other people that come to see us fairly routinely when they've had a bad night out and that kind of thing, those kinds of things. So it really runs the gamut. It really runs.
You're so funny with the bad night out. You're available on a Saturday morning at your office if they've had a bad Friday night?
Call me on Friday night. I'm available on Saturday morning. Yes, absolutely. We did, not this past year, but the year before, on New Year's Day, we did a family of 8. We went out to a house in Westport and did a whole family. We did 8 people. Their New Year's Eve party must have been a great party, and there was adults lying all over the place, and we did all 8 of them at one shot. So,
are there side effects from this? Like, do you ever tell somebody, well, maybe immediately, other than getting cold if it's room temperature, when you leave, you might feel a little lightheaded, or tomorrow you might, or maybe you'll sleep like a baby tonight, or
generally the answer is no. We always encourage people to have something in their stomach when they come in. Vitamin C, a hefty dose of vitamin C can sometimes make you a little bit nauseated. So we have Cliff bars and nuts and stuff like that. So if somebody's if it's affecting their tummy to the IV, we just feed them and they feel much better.
Somebody, man, this is, I was going to say more than 10 years ago. It's probably closer to 20 years ago, like the early 2000s. So, and I forget who I was talking to. It was maybe a nutritionist at the time. It wasn't a doctor, but somebody in the medical field. It was a woman. She told me that, and what triggered this is you referenced something a moment ago about it's like a dump truck full of oranges or something, right? Is natural vitamin better than manufactured vitamin? Like if you get vitamin C, you're going to get vitamin C from citrus,
right,
okay?
Right.
Or you can take a capsule of vitamin C. Is one more effective? Is one better? Is one more, I hate to go the other direction, is one more harmful than the other? Or how do you compare and contrast natural vitamin C that you get from eating citrus fruit or an encapsulated manufactured vitamin C? I shouldn't say vitamin C, any vitamin for that matter.
Well, manufactured vitamin C is ascorbic acid. The vitamin C that we get, it all comes from plants. It's not just citric fruits that have vitamin C. Sweet potatoes have a lot of vitamin C, and so a lot of the stuff that we eat, it's all comes from plants. It's all plant-based vitamin C. Straight up ascorbic acid has the same antioxidant effect that that citrus fruits have. In terms of its antioxidant effect, that's a chemical reaction. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, to a certain degree. Although with this, we're talking about 6 of one and about 12 million of the other. So it's not quite the same thing.
True.
Yeah.
True. And I just want to go back to the IV. I know we got to wrap things up shortly. It's just amazing how something as simple as getting an IV, right, that you don't need a recommendation for, a referral for. You just go in on your own one day, get the IV, and it can have that positive of an impact of how you're feeling, not only for that day, but it'll carry you for a while.
Yeah, the absorption rate of the intravenous stuff that you're getting is variable depending on what you're getting. So I always tell people tomorrow morning you're going to feel a lot better. I mean, first of all, you feel great going out because you've been hydrated, okay? You've gotten a lot of saline, and so your body, the average human doesn't drink enough water. I'm a classic example. Sometimes the end of the day will come and I'll realize that the only fluid I've had all day was the cup of coffee I had in the morning. Oh. I'm no different than anybody
and
else
you're a doctor.
because you get busy. I know. You get busy. And so going out the door, they feel better because they're hydrated. And then the level, the speed of absorption of the stuff that you're giving them is variable. So I always tell them tomorrow morning is really when you're going to feel the most from this.
And typically, I'm sure this depends on the type of IV, or I'll let you answer it. You'd know more than I would, obviously. How long would it last? We talk about a person who comes in once a week. Does it really start to wear off after a few days, or?
That's a really good question. Some people feel it acutely, and so they do come in every week because they feel so much better and they feel it taper off over a period of a week. The B vitamins, for instance, you don't necessarily need stress levels of B vitamins once a week. Okay, your body does metabolize them, but by the same token, you get a hefty dose of B12. It's going to hang in there for a couple of weeks. A person with pernicious anemia, which is a disease where you just don't absorb B12, if they get a B12 shot once a month, they're typically in pretty good shape for that month. But that is baseline B12 resuscitation. This we're talking about, more than that. Mega doses because some people, they feel a lot better. Some people it lasts longer. Some people it lasts just a few days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I wasn't expecting it here could last up to a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. Listen, I'm intrigued. I'd get an IV. I don't know which. Like, if someone's listening to this and they're saying, "Wow, geez, this sounds pretty good," but it sounds like there's a plethora amount of, of IVs that you can get.
Sure.
Somebody just walks in and says, "I don't know. Let me try an IV."
Yeah.
Are there questions that you ask them, certain responses that you're looking for in order to determine what kind of IV they should get? Give me an example of a couple of questions that you would ask and answers that you're looking for.
Well, anybody comes to a practice for the first time, they sit down with me, and that takes about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Obviously, the first thing you ask them is what medicines are you on, and are you allergic to anything? People who are allergic to sulfa drugs, for instance, cannot get glutathione. We talked about glutathione before, because glutathione is a molecule that contains sulfur. So if they're allergic to sulfa drugs, they cannot get glutathione. So you have to ask those fundamental questions. And then after that, you just say, well, what brought you here, and what is the goal that you're trying to reach by coming here? And then, like we talked about before, you just shut up and you listen. And then you kind of fashion something. You say, okay, well, we have a lot of the IVs in our practice. They're not pre-mixed. We mix them right on site. Okay?
And that was my next question.
We mix them right on site. But they're sort of recipes for this, that, and the other thing. And so a lot of people, they fit a recipe. They're coming in, they just got over the flu, let's say.
COVID.
Or they're going to run the New York Marathon, and they've been overtraining on the way to it. Or they just finished the New York Marathon.
And they're fatigued.
And they're feeling kind of crappy. So a lot of it has to do with what their goals are. So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense to me. For me, it's just a matter of which one do I want to try. I guess it's in your hands. I trust you implicitly. HyperFit MD Age Management Center. They are located at 88 Noble Avenue, Suite 105, down in Milford, Connecticut, is where you can find them. I tell you this, find them online first. Poke around, work your way around the website. You probably already have a few questions right now. Going to the website will do one of two things. So it could answer some of those questions that you have. More than likely, it'll spark others, which is why I advise, write them down. Go to hyperfitmd.com. Once again, www.hyperfitmd.com. Jot down some, spend a little bit of time there, jot down some questions, and then present them to Dr. Charles Guglin. You can do that in a couple of ways, of course. If they're private, if they're of a personal nature, you can certainly email him at cguglinmd, that's CGUGLINMD, at hyperfitmdamc.com. Or you could also do it the old-fashioned way. This is my preferred method, is to give them a buzz. It is area code 203-890-9777. I'll repeat that for you. Area code 203-890-9777. Wow. For Dr. Charles Guglin, I'm Gary Byron. Thank you so much for listening. Until next Saturday,